What are your takeaways from last night?
I think my chief takeaway is the way Porzingis played, and not so much on the offensive end, which I think rightfully so got a lot of attention, but more what his influence was defensively on that game. And it really went beyond the 3 blocks. It was his ability to contest, alter, and deter shots in the paint, which is something that Dallas has done a lot of during the postseason. They came into the game attempting the most shots per game in the playoffs, 18.7 of any team, in the playoffs that advance beyond the first round when it comes to shots in the paint that aren't in the restricted area. So aren't in that little dotted line charge zone. So they're in the paint, but outside that area. That was where they get a lot of their shots from. And they were just 7-22 last night in that area, which is 31%. And from the time he entered the game, 7:17 left in the first quarter, to when Jason Kidd waved the white flag and took all his starters out, as a team, overall shots anywhere on the floor, they shot 37%. They were 41 for the game. So I think as much as you like the 29-foot threes from Porzingis and the 20 points in 21 minutes, I thought it was his defense that changed that game more than anything.
I'm with Chris.
Go ahead.
I thought defensively he was an absolute major factor in that first quarter. And, we didn't touch on this quickly because you were saying Mazzulla's thing was overrated. Bringing him off the bench made a difference in that game.
I said his timeout was overrated.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. The bringing him off the bench was a factor. It made a difference. And then when he got in there, the crowd got into it. And defensively, I thought their whole intensity picked up. And anytime Dallas went near the rim, they had to shoot over him. He was a huge factor, Chris, in that game defensively. Huge, huge, huge.
Don't you think opponents underestimate him?
Yes.
Like they continue to on both ends. Like the whole first half, Dallas allowed that switch at the free throw line where he gets on a little guy, which is like, as Cerrone Battle would say, it was barbecue chicken. Like it's over, right? Like, that's what Cerrone says about that. It's like that's like stealing for him.
It is.
And Dallas just let that happen. They adjusted in the second half, but in the first they let it go. And then in the first half, guys are attacking him at the rim. I mean, the green breakaway dunk is another example. It's like you didn't have to do that. You go lay it in. And I think teams continue to underestimate Porzingis, Chris, on both ends.
I would agree with you on that, Felge. I think part of last night may have been the fact that he was returning from the injury and that Dallas wanted to test him. And I get that. And he passed those tests with flying colors. The block he had on there, the block he had Jaden Hardy, altering some shots by Kyrie. So I understand that. I think they wanted to test him in part because he had missed all that time. And again, offensively, it was impressive. But what was most remarkable to me about all the time he missed is I didn't see him blow a coverage, or he was able to get back on that Josh Green dunk attempt and get up and block that dunk. Shooting over guys 8 inches shorter than you and shooting 29-foot threes, that stuff's impressive, but that's probably stuff that he's practiced for a while he's been rehabbing this injury. Playing 5-on-5 defense and sprinting back to block somebody's shot. I don't think he really had a chance to do that in practice. And so that was the most impressive part for me after a 38-day layoff in terms of what he was able to do. And also just overall, I'll throw the offense back into it. The two-way performance from him. This is a guy who, coming here, the biggest question about him, other than the injuries, was, well, if he's so good, how come none of his teams ever get past the first round? And when you look at his playoff numbers, they're, he's kind of was like the Charlie McAvoy, effect in terms of this guy looks the part, but in the playoffs, why doesn't he step up? In the biggest game of his life, the biggest game of his career, the biggest stage of his career, he was fantastic, and he turned the tide of the game.
You have a thought, Mazz?
I don't.
Chris, do you think Dallas still has a chance in this series? And if so, what's their path? How does it happen?
I do think they still have a chance in this series. I mean, you look at some of the advanced numbers from last night. I mean, it's obvious they didn't shoot well. They were 7 of 27 from 3, and it was really worse than that. They were 5 of 23 before the backups came in and hit a couple of threes, and out of those 5 threes, Luka hit 4 of them. So the other guys have to make shots. Again, Luka had 41 passes in this game, according to the NBA stats. He had 1 assist. That wasn't because Luka wasn't making good passes or getting guys open looks. They didn't knock down shots.
Agreed.
At all. Luka did what Luka normally... Luka could have had 11 assists in that game if guys knocked down shots. And Drew Holiday also had 41 passes in the game and finished with 5 assists. Why? Because his teammates made shots. So I think that Dallas will go back to a lot of the same stuff, but I do think this is one aspect of Joe Mazzulla that is not overrated. They took away some things Dallas really likes to do, and it was by design. They took away the lobs, which was something that Dallas is really good with Lively and Daniel Gafford. But they also took away the three that the Mavs like the most, which is that corner three-pointer. They took that away from them. Regular season, the Mavs averaged the most corner threes in the league at 11.3. They were only able to take 3 of those corner threes last night. And all the other threes were like above the break threes, which they were 6 for 24 on, 25%. So that was by design by the Celtics. Those are good shots. The Mavs are going to have to knock it. Like Kyrie, to me, is not going to play another game like that in the series. So they'll be better. And the Celtics have lost 2 game 2s. Those were their 2 losses. The Mavs have won every game 2 they've played this postseason. So I don't think you're going to see a repeat in game 2. There's still a path for the Mavs to make this a competitive series, but they got their doors blown off last night. No question about it. Right. I think they were shell-shocked by it.
Yeah, so Chris, Kyrie Irving might not have a game like he had last night, but
yes,
that third, for all intents and purposes, the third scorer for Dallas is their combined centers, and one of them was horrific in Derek Lively. Like he looked all out of sorts, and the moment was too big for him. So I don't know. Those guys averaged a combined like 20 points. Like I don't think you're going to get that from these guys, and see, I just think that their centers are not going to be able to do much for them in this series, given the matchups.
Yeah, I mean, no, we'll see. They're going to have to make some adjustments. Smarter basketball minds than myself will have to tell you exactly what those adjustments are. But I'm sure there are some adjustments. There are some counters they can make to maybe try and free those guys up for some. Maybe it's not a lob, but it's stuff rolling to the rim. Lively is a good passer. So, I mean, if they wanted to use him a little more in that way, almost in like the Robert Williams way, where you start to take, okay, we know you think this guy is a threat on the lob rolling to the rim. We're going to get him the ball off the pick and roll a little higher. And then when you start to protect the lob, he's going to spray it out to somebody in the corner for the 3 that we want. So that's just one example of maybe some adjustments that Jason Kidd can make. But I mean, I'm not a big Jason Kidd strategy guy. I think he's more of a rah-rah guy. So we'll see what the Mavs come up with.
What'd you make of Jason Tatum's night?
I thought Jason Tatum and Kyrie Irving were the 2 players going into the series who had the most pressure on them, and it looked like it last night. I thought the pressure got to both guys. Tatum was kind of fumbling around with the basketball. He had the 6 turnovers. I think he easily could have had 10 if not for situations where maybe if they had scored it a little differently or the ball bounced differently in terms of not going out of bounds off a Maverick. He looked, like he was feeling the pressure. And I know it's funny because he talked and it seemed like he was almost pulling a page out of Kyrie's book after the game, talking about how the nervousness was good and like the first day of school. And it's like, oh, you're trying to talk yourself into this. Like, this is like Kyrie psychobabble. This is not actually like positive nervous energy. He that was a reflection of that, I think, for me. And boy, aren't you glad we got all those Tatum think pieces on how he's underappreciated and over-criticized this postseason? Those were all well-timed.
I thought he was all right.
The turnovers are bad, Mike.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Even he said he had 6 turnovers with 7:23 left in the third quarter.
No, it's true. The whole, I don't know how many he had in the first 5 minutes of the game.
Like 3.
The first 5 minutes of the game were really...
It was hectic on both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah.
Like the Celtics couldn't put it in the ocean. No one could hang on to the ball. So I know Tatum it was 3 in that stretch. Okay.
Well, he had 3 in the quarter, I should say. And there were a couple of other passes, like one of the ones Chris was talking about. There was basically a pick and roll that he passed to Porzingis that went out off a Dallas player that was way in front.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It was way in front of Porzingis.
It was like Porzingis' first trip down the floor.
Correct.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And so that was not a turnover, but it was a bad pass.
Right.
So, and there were a couple of other, though. I'm with Chris. The turnover, I thought Tatum's, ball security, if you want to use a football term, at times in that game was horrid. If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Celtics analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.